I am going to now ask Victoria Marks to sort of lead us into this. And just for those of you who don't know Beck, very simply and highly edited version of who Vic is. Professor at UCLA, dean, choreographer, someone who works with groups of people in various states of marginalization, I would say, and someone for whom I have great respect, and who's going to help us be really focused in the next about 45 minutes, because we want to be respectful to the union people who are going to come in at 3 o'clock and start tearing chairs out. So if we can be mindful of that and give your attention to Vic Marks, it would be great. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to do this with you guys. So real quick, or real slow in the quick time, there's 3 projects that we want to accomplish in the next 45 minutes. 1 is discussion. 2 is an opportunity, because I know many of you probably have announcements you want to make in this form of here's a follow-up or here's what's next, pay attention. But those have to be really brief. And the 3rd is just closure for all of us. So in the first, I wanted to, I don't know what happened to the smaller cards. I want to offer each of you a card of some kind and a writing implement if you don't already have it. And just to take a moment to write down for yourself and for us ongoing frictions, unresolved discussions that had to be cut short because of our need to move on, places that you will continue to dwell when you leave here. I don't mean geographical places, but ideas, experiences that were provocative. So once again, frictions, conflicts, provocations, things that will be carried out with you but still want to be addressed. So take a moment, this will be for all of us, to write our thoughts.
And you sent the handwriting experts out? Well, here are all the handwriting experts. It's so much heavier. You're right.
Okay, so we're obviously not going to be able to address all these, but the beautiful thing is you now have a record.
Probably if we could speak in a mic, it would be a way to keep the conversation clean and also let us hear each other.
So forgive me if I step on anyone's toes, it's not my intention.
I have frameworks too, so I can pass them around.
I can pass things around. So my thought is that I will share a question on a piece of paper randomly, and that we'll take just a couple of moments to both clarify the question and share some thoughts. And again, we will leave it unfinished, but we'll try to go through a few of these. So, how can we as dance artists find a way as Jews not to apologize for our connections to the, land of Israel, while at the same time acknowledge the rights of Palestinians and other peoples who are also living there? How can we as dance artists, and if you're not a dance artist, as your kind of artist, find a way as Jews not to apologize for our connections to the land of Israel, while at the same time acknowledge the rights of Palestinians and other peoples who are living there? And so now I invite you to make a response. You may want to respond to the question itself.
I think today in our time, Jews everywhere, whether they're a practicing artist or not, are challenged to think about their connection to the land of Israel or Israel itself in a non-apologetic way. And I wouldn't venture to put words in anybody's mouths, but it is a pity to me that more people don't go. The amount of people who have stopped going, the proportion of Jews who don't know what it's like there, from all perspectives, is a pity.
Other response?
I just want to recall J.L. Talman's article, Israel, the Jew of the Nations, meaning that Israel is demonized as a Jewish state because nationalism at this time is considered a primary focus. But before, whether it was economics, then Jew was the ultimate economic evil. If it was religion, Jew was the ultimate religious evil. It's just a change of focus, but it's always the Jew who is singled out internationally.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? I didn't see much last night. The difference between identity and nationalism, I think, is really important. Identity, it seems, can be generative. I think that's what we see here at this conference. Everything that comes out of us looking at, identifying with, experiencing, figuring out who we are. Thing is, we couldn't be figuring this stuff out if either our parents or our grandparents or somebody hadn't sort of left. And this constant idea in Judaism of teshuvah, return. How to return, the question is how to return, to make work, to make work instead of war. And what does it take to survive? Jews have worked on that question for eons, And it's something that I think more people are dealing with because of just everybody's on the move worldwide, and identity is being lost and found and lost and found. And I think this last talk is very important in that sense. And Jews are losing and finding and rejecting and bringing back. And it's just sort of cyclical. That's why I'm sort of left with that in the good and promising sense of that, and in the less promising sense.
For me, I think that the issue of connection to land is completely separate from the necessity for equal human rights and freedom and self-determination, and that I don't think that anyone should have to sacrifice their relationship and love of a place to have to be able to fight for other people's freedom. I think that the conflation of those two things is really that entanglement is really where the problem was. And I'm from New York City. This is my homeland, and I love the city so much. I live in Philadelphia now, and I love Philadelphia. And I also am acutely aware of inequity and injustice here, and both are true, and neither can detract from one another. So.
Thank you. How about we shift to another thought? I can't read this, so if you recognize this as yours, please speak up. Yeah, fess up. Thank you, Judith. Still need to oppress hierarchies in which...
So much for anonymity. We still need to address hierarchies in which Israel, level of observance, biblical themes, quote unquote Jewish, exercise privilege.
One more time.
Still need to address hierarchies in which Israel, level of observance, biblical themes, and quote unquote Jewish exercise privilege within this discourse.
Just as a point of clarification, I may be the only one, but are you saying that we still need to?
We still.
And then your invitation to us is, why is that? Or what's up with that?
Yes.
Do we need a hierarchy?
What I'm suggesting,
What I'm suggesting might be my own personal projection, is that within this discussion that we've been having for a long, 15 or so years now, that there are hierarchies that exist that we tiptoe around. And those hierarchies, I think, in my opinion, are Israel, level of observance, biblical themes, an idea of what Jewish means, and that those hierarchies force the conversation into situations in which some of us feel shamed by our lack of affection for Israel, or our lack of observance at the highest level, or the fact that we don't address biblical themes in our art, but we work in different ways that we consider to be Jewish.
And so your question then is, what's up with that? Okay, good. Go for it.
So, I guess I don't. Personally, of course, I believe in hierarchies because I live by them. But as an artist, I tend to suppress them, meaning looking at other artists' work. I see that list that you made as a list of responsibilities. So in a funny way, I see them as hierarchies operating, but only as responsibilities if you want to get to a certain place. They're all issues to me to be explored and discussed, but not necessary for the prospect of making art. But the more, to give you an example, this group of people and this conference discusses them, since it's called a conference on the Jewish arts, perhaps the more fruitful some of the discussions may be. But it's not, I certainly don't see them personally as exclusive. I try to look at Morandi's still lifes with as much seriousness as I look at a Veronese painting of Queen Esther.
Mark? Yeah. Go for it, Zaba.
Well, this is the first time I am in the Conney conference, right? And I didn't feel any of the hierarchies you're talking about. So, true, when I look at my own paper of Sunday, I discussed themes of some of my dances that are biblical, but it's not because I felt they are more privileged. It's because as I was trying to reconnect with my Jewish roots and my schooling in Israel through elementary and high school was that we did study the Bible as a secular, mythological kind and not religious. So if I wanted to talk about justice, of course it's Sarah and Hagar, because that's what I studied, not because I think it's more important. But that's what I wanted to bring to this table, because it's a Jewish conference. I didn't talk about Walkman variations, which is about New York streets, something else I selected to be relevant to the topic of this conference. Don't call it Jewish, we'll tell you something else.
Could I ask you to read the list again? Because what I think is missing for me is also history, in terms of just history. I mean, Jewish history, or was it in there?
No, go ahead, sorry.
Okay.
This is supposed to be anonymous, so now I'm like, but that's great.
Because I actually feel, I'm sorry, were you next?
If I can make a comment, I'll support this.
Could you just go like closer to your mouth?
Yeah, I just.
Are you finished? Are you finished?
No, I'm not quite done. Because I actually feel that we as Jews have a secret history that other people don't know about. And Israelis may not be as aware of this as North Americans. But when people in general learn about the Middle Ages, they learn that there were lords and serfs, and only if you go to religious school or a Jewish school do you find out that the Jews were outside of that system. I mean, I could go on, but that's an obvious example. That in Europe until probably about 1850, there was the synagogue, and then there was the church that the Jews had to go to in many countries, just in case they changed their mind. So, and Jews getting the right to vote. I just found out Jews couldn't vote in the state of Maryland until 1828, could not vote in New Hampshire.
Jewish man.
Jewish men. And yes, yes, African Americans, I mean, I don't want to get into hierarchy of oppression. There are many people who faced much worse challenges, but as Jews have become white, and maybe Jews are white completely now, but there is still this history that we carry with us that is increasingly, it seems, secret even from the younger generation of Jews.
I think to put this concept of hierarchies in a more general framework, what we're really dealing with, I mean, there have been many studies. The American Jewish community at this point is a disintegrated community. And it's a disintegrated community. And it's particularly, even people in my generation, but certainly the generation after me, people under 40, is overcome by ignorance of their of religion, of Jewish history, of Jewish culture. And what people try to do is, naturally, they try to grasp at whatever aspect of an identity, what tenuous connections they have, and they try to construct some kind of identity, and usually that's a very unhappy process. And the fact of the matter is that for a very religious person, if they daven 3 times a day, there aren't really these hierarchies, because the observance is very important, but when they're davening Shemona Esrei, they're praying for the rebuilding of the temple every day. So the connection to the land of Israel and to the regaining of the Jewish nation, the rebuilding of the Jewish nation, is something that religious Jews have prayed for every day for thousands of years. But this observance comes with a built-in culture because of the mitzvot. So, meaning that for people who are deeply engaged, there's no need to try to construct hierarchies because everything is built in. And it's a very intense experience, and it's meaningful. It's a living experience. It's not something that has to be artificially reconstructed, which is unfortunately what a lot of people are going through, particularly in this country. Okay.
I do think that there are hierarchies of points of view that we, in sort of giant we in the circle, we the other people who have been here, but also implicitly in the larger community of Jews. And part of it has to do with religious practice, recognizing particularly the haunting question for me, Primo Levi's question of, so in what sense are you Jewish? For those of us who are entirely secular, but consider our Jewishness to be significant. And I think that this is a really, it's certainly been major for me in thinking through the last few days, but also to think about the hierarchy of a certain kind of dance. And yes, of course, Eva, you're being selective about the kind of work you choose to bring here. I mean, that's logical. But we have seen so much of certain kinds of dance that assume a certain point of view, and there are so many other points of view with which to address experience and identity. And one of the things that I'm interested in doing is working through those, figuring out what they are and what they can be, and asking the big question about who has the right to abstraction and how working, for example, I think it was Lauren talking about the person, the Palestinian dancer who said, why wasn't anyone writing about our stuff as dance? And you said that, sorry, Nicole. So, but that really hit me. That we have so many ways to be who we are, and one thing that's so important is bringing together who we are as humans and who we are as artists in ways that are that bring these elements together. I could go on, but I will hand this over.
Can I just speak as a composer, because I'm not a dancer, but I have given a lecture on what makes Jewish music Jewish. And it's interesting because, you know, is it because the composer's Jewish? So just because you're a Jewish artist, does that mean everything you create is Jewish? Or there are many non-Jewish composers that created Jewish music. So what does that mean? Or does it mean that it's based on some type of historical Jewish subject, or has some type of inspiration from a Jewish melody? Does that make it Jewish? Is it Conney that comes from somewhere else? Now is that Jewish? It's a really an interesting question because there are so many ways to answer it, and I think the beauty of this kind of a conference is that everybody brings to it what it means to them, and that makes it beautiful, and also Jewish.
I'm Hannah. Yeah, I appreciate the knowing that you wrote that, because I look to you as someone who's really made and continues to make a platform for me to do my work on whatever I say is Jewish at any moment, at any time. And I, take that very seriously because I have my own family and my own politics and my own agenda is always changing and moving in many directions, but it's because of the relationship with you, Doug, and the relationship with so many of the women in the room that are ongoing and iterative and always surprising me and then opening up to the next steps of what I get to do that justifies taking a week away from work to do this. And then in turn bring my own parents to work day at the Seder performance workshop on Tuesday. So just to say that I come to the conference for the relationships, and I don't really find it surprising that there would be people in the room that want to profess what they know or argue about it or find themselves one way or the other or turned inside out. That doesn't surprise me growing up in a synagogue or in the world. And I don't have any idea about there being some Jewish essential singularity. That's one thing in the US and one thing in Israel. I mean, so the hierarchies, what they are, we can always do work, but I like coming to the conference for having like really important relationships with people who think pretty different things than each other. I get a kick out of that. And have found this conference and then the fall conference to be the fall conference that Naomi Jackson convened, to be particularly spicy, like when it comes to programming something that has Nicole and Hadar against other works in the program. And it's like the whole spectrum of, not the whole, a large spectrum of points of view that can piss everybody off and make everybody wonder about what we're doing in a room together. Other times of the year, I wonder if being Jewish is enough of a reason to get together for anything. Yeah, so I think that the thing that is the antidote to presumed hierarchies and the power in the conference of them might be the way we do it. In my experience of the conference over 3 or 4 times now,
I
which
just
is
wanna
to make
say
lots of
also-
room for the relationships.
I just want to echo what you're saying. I haven't felt that at the conference, so I don't know, maybe that's from your curatorial.
Well,
perspective. Your
I
own-
do feel it. I do
Oh,
feel
you
it.
feel
Yeah,
it?
sure.
Oh, okay.
And
I don't feel it.
the list is long. There's many things that are left out of that list. But and if I were to write a list of binary thinking and stuff like that,
Wait, what list of binary thingy did you just?
or what's a hierarchy? Yeah.
Like the hierarchies of
Yeah,
binaries.
the power,
Male versus female outlook.
the competing ideologies at work or the different stances, the way we do our lives. But yeah,
I guess so
think
that like what you said though, I feel like I take it for granted that those are there.
you're
And
writing
then-
a book, for instance, right now on the multiplicity of the points of view. It's not all of them or anywhere close, but you're subgrouping on your table of contents things that have really opposing points of view, and you find that to be special about a book on Jewish performance. And I'm learning from you about why that book now that would do that kind of work. So just to say, it's a gratitude love letter message on Mike. Also that I feel totally at ease to have my own opinions here, and don't expect anybody to have to agree with me or what have you. Whereas in the blind review type things that happen in our field, it's quite violent what can tend to happen. When I was writing a manuscript and at the later stages of its publication, when it gets reviewed by anonymous people, and someone said, does she even know what Jewish means? Yeah. So this is like my big publication moment, coming out to do the work, like a labor of love for us. The Case of the Sexy Jewess, that was the book.
Oxford University Press,
Thank you.
go get it.
Thanks, but, you know, that type of comment, but who even wrote that? Do they want to talk to me about it? They don't. They just want to make sure I don't get to write my book. And the comment that went with that was later in the letter, sorry if it was you, I just, but was that fascinating topic, not sure it's the author to write it. So then it makes you wonder who's the author they wish wrote it. Anyway, you start wondering about the other people's versions of why you can't think what you think and why it's not under the umbrella of Jewish. So anyway, I find that the thing that's real, we can do all of our work online anyway, so why would we spend any days here if not to make real and genuine relationships of support and trust to be thankfully and inventively and imaginatively, in dialogue about what we're supposed to be doing together next and how we can help each other. I mean, Judith has come to every single one of my talks and I don't think agrees with a page of my book. So there's that. There's that, you know? Yeah. Yeah.
Is there anyone else who'd like to respond to that?
I just wanted to quickly say, I really agree with what Hannah said. And for me, it's always, being at this kind of gathering has always taken me in a new direction. Because I hear something or I see something and it's usually not something I would agree with. But that's where I go. So that I find that really interesting.
Just to agree with both of you, the first thing I wrote on this, it took me a while to do, so I still have my card with me. You asked, Vic, what the conflicts were. The conflict for me is not enough time left in my life to investigate all the wonderful stuff I've been exposed to here, that I'm always exposed to. What? Yeah, I mean, I don't really care about what I agree or disagree with. I really don't care. It's hearing it and hearing these discussions that make me, that just, those just, the blood flows more in my veins, everything, it just enlivens. And that's all that's important. That's really, I was, in the Seder workshop, it was like Talmudic study, I told Vic already, and Ellen, we were just sitting there studying, thinking. We're here to think. This is another form of Torah study, as far as I'm concerned. Hearing each other, it's so important.
So, if I could just give myself an opportunity to respond to this, just really quickly. I appreciate the question, what's up with that? And as I hear all the folks who've been talking in the circle, what I'm left with is, this is a great opportunity to practice being in dialogue with individuals with really different perspectives. The very paradigms come from different planets as far as I might be concerned, and that we get to practice inquiry and compassion. So, the hierarchy factor kind of situates like someone with more power and someone with less power, but that's actually our creation. And we in this gathering, this circle, or any other part of these meetings get to decide if they're hierarchies or if they're horizontalities. And my hope is that every one of us doesn't sit comfortably wherever you are, because then there's a chance to move. I want to just address one more. This was like the really sumptuous one, but there were so many cards that brought up appropriation. And I'm sure you recognize yourself because there were a lot of them. And rather than repeat any of the questions, if we would just take a couple of minutes, maybe, Nicole and Lauren gave us a pretty sumptuous platform to think about appropriation, and I'm wondering if we'd like to just take a couple of moments, maybe to restate that, and then maybe just to hear some rebuttals or responses. Would that be all right with where you are? Here you are. Yeah? Do you like that idea?
No.
Okay.
I don't.
Okay, well then,
Enjoy
that liking.
Well, I had a really interesting dialogue with someone in the corner. We were like refusing to come into the circle for a while, and we were dialoguing about that. And out of that conversation came an interesting conclusion for me. I love debate so much because it really forces me to articulate and clarify what matters and the essence of things. And I think that a lot of the kind of negative responses to the assertion that cultural appropriation is bad is often like, well, how can we like make anything if we don't borrow or like are influenced or like we're in the soup, and which I totally get. And I think that for me, besides of course being aware of the power inequity, the power differentials, really at the heart of it for me is around cultivating consciousness. So like, as I'm making a dance, all of my experiences and relationships and influences are going to come through me in that making of the dance. But how can I start to deepen and deepen and deepen in my self-awareness and consciousness around how influences arise in the material, so that I can be more and more and more sensitive to ways that I might be inadvertently stealing from somebody else. And we're all human. We're not perfect, right? But I think that for me, it's really just about cultivating consciousness rather than creating conditions where we start to beat on each other for, like, oh, that one move you took from black dance video you saw when you were 8 and therefore you suck. No, like that's not what I'm saying. But just, developing more sensitivity.
I want to say that that's very much how I teach, from that place of us, but I also start with the idea that everything is already, that always already kind of awareness that everything's already intertextual, that it's not as if there's any pure anything that we're starting with.
I agree with you, Naomi, completely. And if you look at Judaism, it's constantly colliding culturally with all kinds of places. We're all speaking in English, and that's a collision. Another collision that a friend was studying for her doctorate, Me'am Lo'ez, a very important Jewish text on Kabbalah, written in Arabic, but in Hebrew letters.
So I wanted to just quickly say though that I agree that it's an endless and impossible task in one sense because everything is always shifting. But I think that cultivating the awareness of potential places of inequity is an exercise that's important, and that we strive for. But it is always changing, and the politics, but I are always changing, but I think that it's about power. I agree that that's when things are become appropriation in a negative sense. So
I think what Nicole addressed, the notion of cultural appropriation as simply, as it were, when it might be permissible, it has to do with simply power, which of course translates into politics, is something I really deeply agree with. And therefore, and this is not really addressing the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but something having to do with my own work. Just to back up, I did about maybe 4 years ago now, 2 sets of paintings. One set of 16 paintings on the life of Sarah, They were large, each painting was 5 by 6 feet, and it was trying to understand Sarah's narrative in what was, I thought, to be a deeply dysfunctional family. At the end of the set of paintings, of course, one of the people I had to deal with was Hagar, who they say, and I think the Midrash says that Abraham returns to Hagar and has children with her. So that said, I did then another set of 16 paintings on the life of Hagar. A friend actually reviewed those things and said a woman's story in a man's mouth, because next to each painting, the painting of Sarah, I put a text imagining, I can only imagine as a man, but imagine as another human being, of what Sarah must have been feeling. The second set of paintings, I did the same thing, depicting Hagar and trying to understand her world in that marriage. But that wasn't the only cultural appropriation I made. It was that I not only got into try to appropriate the consciousness of a woman, but also with Hagar, she is very rightfully seen as what your piece showed me. She's a black woman. And so, of course, in the painting, she's a black woman. So for me, the idea of cultural appropriation strikes very close to home. And therefore, even though I see that actually some people could see what I did was an act of violence, I also believe that as an artist, we have to be sinners. We have to sometimes violate things, because I think I got at things about her and about their narratives that I couldn't have if I wouldn't have, quote, sinned against the reality of the power politics between male and female and white and black.
Thank you, thank you. We really have to move on, but does anybody want to just take a moment to conclude this part of the conversation? It's to be super short.
I only came for your talk, and thank you. But the question of appropriation, specifically when it comes to Israelis and Palestinians, I think what challenged me so much is the narrative of the Jew as outsider in the land of Israel, where presumably the Jews, the Yerushalmi Jews are in Hebron, who were living there for 2,000 years, we're dancing at weddings and playing music, whatever that music was, is part of the tradition. So the question of the liquidity of culture, and like particularly music and dance, I do theater, but like music and dance, where the dialogue between people living next to one another is always present. So the language of appropriation for me, where I understand the power structures right now at play, we need to be respectful and aware, but on a historic view, these people were living together for thousands of years and are constantly influencing one another until today.
Thank you. So a good thorny issue that will continue. Now, so, I mean, I do hope that our ears are open as we are hearing one another, because there's a lot of conflict. Did I just get cut off? No. No more. A lot of conflict in what we're saying. I want to just now. This is going to be the shortest part of our session today. If you have a deeply important announcement to make that has to do with what we're going to do when we leave the Conney conference, like I know Ellen does, this is the time for that. Not like what your next career move is going to be, or what else is happening in New York City, because some of us are going back to LA. Ellen.
A brief. Do you have to hold it in at this time?
Hello? Yes, okay, you're there. We were conducting this Seder working group over the last couple of days, and it generated a lot of really fabulous ideas, and Vic and I are interested in pursuing this research. We don't know the form it's going to take. We don't know how long it will take for us to materialize, if we materialize something. But one thing we would like to ask, if you are so inclined, would be to take a photograph of your Passover Seder table and send it into, is there a place to send it for Connie?
Who sent it to me?
Well, no, I mean, just if there's one address to send it to. Oh, okay, all right, well, you just don't have it, but okay, we'll figure that out. So anyway, we'll get you my email address. And we would love to have, pardon me?
We have the list that we all have, because we've been getting all our emails since our.
Oh, okay. So anyway, please send in, if you are so inclined, to send a photograph of your Passover table right before you're about to sit down, your ceremonial plate, and anything else that has meaning for you in the environment, perhaps the situation of the tables. And it can be, we'd like to see it without people, and then we would also like to see it at the end of the Seder, before you start cleaning up. If you can think about that and send those in, we would love it. Thank you very much.
Other quick announcements.
In exchange for that, would you send us whatever you found out at your workshop?
Yes. Other quick announcements of like the Conney continues kind of thing?
The Conney continues tonight. Everybody is invited. Everybody is invited from the Conney to room on the other building, 297, to experience what some people call appropriation, the Israeli folk dance experience with the master teacher here named Ruth Goodman, and then it continues in the gym at 8.
What time did you say?
6:15 in S297. It's the studio upstairs in the south building.
Are you ready for that?
Okay, thank you.
I'm Lauren, and this was my first Conney conference, so I'm just thinking about all the people that have been here for many years before me and soaking up all of that information.
I'm Judith, and I hope everybody will use the email list to stay in touch. It's always so stimulating.
Keep thinking and working on the dancing prayer opportunities that happened in the Eva and Judith's workshop this morning.
This was also my first Conney conference. This man, I forget his name, yesterday mentioned as we embolden our community to also reach out to other communities, and I felt like that was one of the strongest. Something that stuck with me is as we build this, to also make connections with others.
This is my first Conney being here because of the performance, and I just am expressing gratitude to be amongst such an incredible, wonderful group of people and artists and thinkers, and I'm looking forward to doing more of this with all of you and bringing it to my small community, Macon, Georgia.
Nicole, this is also my first time here, and I found this conversation to be incredibly stimulating and invigorating and challenging in some really great ways. So I'm taking home with me some gratitude for this. So.
I'm Leslie Satan, and this is my first Conney conference, but I consider it to be the second installment following the conference in Arizona. And both of these are deeply stimulating, very emotionally affecting. I'm really glad to meet so many great people, and also just to have a sense of these many contributions to my extremely in-process relationship to the idea of being Jewish.
Very well said. I feel so enriched and open to my own Jewishness, which has been closeted for many years. So this is, I feel so fortunate to hear from so many wise people, practicing artists, and young, brilliant minds who are making work and helping us all think about the larger scale of our own trajectory and what role we play in this small moment in time.
Okay, for me it's the first. It was so important for me to write this paper that I did, and if not for this conference and starting with Naomi, I wouldn't have. So it's like this allows me to bring out secrets in my life that I was the only person who knew. So it's so lovely to bring it out. This is one. The second thought that I have is in response to Doug and his challenge. I like to challenge us to bring next time to talk or to show what we think is the most un-Jewish work of our own, and to see why cannot I be Jew doing that? Can we do that?
What about Sal? Kat? Oh, me? Yes.
Well, in all honesty, I'm new to Judaism. Although it's in my blood somewhere. And so it's been really enlightening to experience the complexity of the faith and the lifestyle and the culture and the people and the everything. I was at lunch with Doug and Vic and Ellen yesterday, and we were talking about the closet analogy of coming out of the closet. Well, like my Jew closet is like Narnia right now. But I feel like it's really, as someone who has had, been aware of my Jewish heritage, but then never really exploring it in an in-depth way, especially through the lens of text, our biblical text. So this has been just really, really stimulating and eye-opening and inspiring as an artist who works with the body. So so thank you everyone for your wonderful minds.
For the next half of us, we have to do half the time.
I have too much to say, but I want to say one thing. I want to say is I consider everyone in this room my teacher, and for all the other conferences in the past, I would say the same thing for a conference that Naomi organized. I was mesmerized and thrilled to be a part of, and I'm constantly learning. The other thing I would just really, really quickly have to say, people talk about the Conney conference and talk about invoke the name Conney. I just want to very quickly say, because most of you have not met the Conneys and won't. Marv Conney is still living. Babe passed on about 3 years ago. And they were people from a very small town in Wisconsin, 2 small towns in Wisconsin, who grew up in a place where there weren't a lot of Jews and maintained their sense of identity through today. They went to the University of Wisconsin. They were educated there, and they're the most gracious, humble people I ever met in my life. And they are the people who literally gave the money, endowed this idea 15 years ago, for no real reason that I could see other than they love art and they love Jewishness, and they never had an agenda. And that's all I really want to say, except that these are real people who really made an exquisite sacrifice, I would say, in endowing this conference, and God bless them.
Seriously, like basically a word.
You know why? Because we have an incredible crew here, and they want to finish at 3.
This is my second conference, second time presenting, and I just want to comment on the location.
Yes.
That New York culturally is vastly different from Los Angeles, where I was before at the last conference, and having those differences has been fascinating, especially in light of your talk.
I'm Barry, and I'm a musicologist, and I hope, this is my first time here, I hope in the future there will be a substantial musicological presence to broaden out the discourse here.
Yay.
I'll never forget that my keynote was introduced by a rabbi. I love it.
Invigorating in every way, mentally, physically, everything.
First time, thank you for having a composer within your midst. And can I send to that Dropbox a piece for Pesach that you can maybe sing at your Seder? Okay, I'll do that.
I'm Cynthia, and thanks to everyone for helping me to keep seeing how much I have to struggle to work out being an artist and being Jewish and being in America.
I'm Richard, really. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to go home and continue to try to make paintings, especially, unfortunately, about anti-Semitism.
Thank you very much. I'm Amy Berger, and I realize I'm kind of a
usurper here because I wasn't a presenter, but I sort of feel that I've been the representative of New York women Jews who dance, and from the Y, because I performed at the Y in the 50s and 60s, and now still I work here as head of the dance therapy. So I've sort of been the witness that and appreciate it. It was wonderful to be here. Thank you.
Well, I never know if I'm going to be insulting when I say things. I love it. 2 Jews, 3 opinions. Perfect.
Thank you.